Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome to my chaotic, nerdy book life. Today's video is going to be about my August reads and the readathon that I participated in, and I'll also let you know whether I finished said readathon or not. But first, I do apologize if you hear a fan going. I have a fan right next to me because it is really hot outside, and the office that I'm in for some reason absorbs the heat, so I am just melting in here. So I do apologize if you hear that in the background. Please bear with me on that. Hopefully you can hear me fine and it's not gonna be a distraction. I am super proud of myself for this month because I read a lot, and that is thanks to the readathon. I read 2 physical novels, 1 audiobook, 1 graphic novel, and 2 manga. 1 physical, 1 digital. Now, the audiobook that I read, I actually did not count that towards my readathon because I had already started that way before the readathon started. So I felt that was probably unfair to count that. But actually, let's go ahead and talk about that first. I read In the Penalty Box by Lynn Rush. I'll insert a picture up here somewhere. I'm not sure which side it'll be on, but it was a hockey romance, and it was I want to say that it was a young adult romance because nothing spicy happened in it, which was fine with me because I actually really felt like the story and the other parts of the story besides the romance really helped with the book in general. It's about this girl who is a figure skater and a boy who is a hockey player. The hockey player's name is Brody and the figure skater's name is Willow. And Willow has recently come back from an injury that she had on her, I think it's her Achilles heel or Achilles tendon, I'm not sure which one. And she's trying to get back on a figure skating team because it's what she loves, it's her passion, and she has to get the go-ahead from physical therapy. Well, she has yet to have the go-ahead, so she's out practicing one day in the ring just to try and get her strength back up. And there is a hockey team that comes in after her to start playing a game. Well, there was some people on the team. It was like some kind of scrimmage or something, and their goalie had gotten hurt and they needed someone to play goalie. Well, they knew that Willow could skate, so they asked her to join in on the scrimmage. Well, of course, a scrimmage doesn't really count towards points or anything for winning. Willow agrees to it, and some of the teammates on the hockey team that Brody plays on did not agree to her joining, but it was just a scrimmage, so they just let her play or whatever. Well, it turns out the goalie was going to be out for longer than they thought, and they really needed Willow to join in. So many people were against it, but they really wanted her. Like, some of them really wanted her because she was good. And she kind of surprised herself because she was thinking, hockey? Like, why would I play hockey? You know? And it, I don't know. It was very interesting because there was a lot of back and forth of whether a girl figure skater should be playing on a boys hockey team. But Brody knew how good she was. And of course, one of the rules on the team was that the coach implied that there was no dating to happen. And yeah, Brody and Willow kind of broke that rule a little bit, but it did not happen immediately. They kind of became, like, I don't know, they kind of hid how they felt about each other from each other because of that rule, and because they kind of, there was a lot going on with wanting to move on with their teams in the future, going to college. Yes, I believe this was high school, so it was YA. Sorry, that just ding, just came into my mind. But it was really cute. There was a lot of real things going on that they were dealing with, and the way they kind of were there for each other, it was very, very precious. And I definitely liked this one. I believe I gave it a 4 stars, I think. I'd have to double check on my Goodreads, but I think it was a 4 stars. And they also have a sequel called Crossing the Line, that I just started recently with one of the teammates that's on the hockey team, that was Brody's, like, best bud, and another girl. And so I'm interested to see what that one will, the way that one will go. So that was my audiobook, and I'm gonna show you the 2 physical novels that I read. These 2 were books I had had on my shelf for a while, so I was pretty proud of myself to be grabbing something off my shelves that had been sitting there for a while instead of picking up something brand new. But the first one is Solo by, I'm just gonna say Mr. Alexander, because I do not want to mess up that name. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Kaweem, maybe? Kaweem Alexander? I'm sorry if I butchered it. But this book was actually told in verse. I'm hoping you can see that okay. So I had this one on my shelf for a very long time because a booktuber that I watch, Jesse the Reader, you may have heard of him, had suggested this book. And it sounded really interesting because it had a lot to do with music, and I'm such a music lover that it really intrigued me to pick it up. Was this book good? Was it terrible? No. But I probably gave this like a 3 star, 2-3 star. It was good, and the further on that I got into it, the more interesting it got. I did listen to this on audio and followed along, so I guess technically I did listen to an audio, but I don't know if I'll be keeping this one. It just didn't really, I don't know. It's just not something that I think I'll go back to. It really did nothing wrong. It was kind of an interesting story, but like I said, it was more towards the end, and it just kind of fell flat for me, in all honesty. But basically, this book is about Blade, who grows up with a father who is very famous, and he gets himself in trouble a lot, and his father goes in and out of rehab, and honestly, it just seems like every time Blade turns around, his father is screwing things up for Blade, as far as publicity goes, and as far as, you know, things in his life. One instance, I apologize if I'm looking out there. I'm trying to bring in natural sunlight, and there's a bird, and it keeps distracting me, so I'm sorry. Anyway, so one instance is he is picked to say something at his graduation, and he decides to write a song. Well, his dad just comes in and takes over everything. He drives in on a motorcycle, he crashes the motorcycle, he jumps up on stage, clearly wasted, and just ruins the whole thing for him. And a lot of things like that keep happening for Blade. And he also has a girlfriend who the girlfriend's parents do not want them to date because they're real Christian, and they think that Blade's father is a really bad influence, and they also think Blade is a bad influence. And so then something happens, and Blade finds out a big secret that has been hidden for him for at least 18 years, I guess, because if he's graduating from high school. And he decides to go off on a journey. And I'm not going to say any more than that because that basically spoils the rest of the book. So, yeah. It was great, like, as far as it did have, like, a simple storyline and, like, an easy flow to read, but I just don't know if I would go back to it. But if you do want to pick it up, because if you want to know the secret and, like, the journey and stuff, it's really not that, it's really not that hard to read. It's really not that slow to read or anything like that. So, yeah, that was Solo. And then, the next book I picked up is a book that I have picked up once before, maybe twice before, and tried to read, and for some reason was never quite in the right mood to read it. And I don't know why, because when I picked this book up, I was like, I'm so thankful that I got this book, and I picked it up for this readathon. That is 5 Feet Apart, by Raquel Lippincott with Miki Daughtry and Tobias Laconis. Hopefully I'm saying that right. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what happens. If you've not seen the movie or read the book, I recommend both, honestly. This book was so good. And I think because I am more around the medical field now with my new job, I understood a lot more of what was going on in this story, and I think it just made things even more interesting for me. This book has some sad moments. So if you're going to read this book, you better have tissues. And if you're going to watch the movie, you better have tissues as well. Because I have never cried so much at a movie. And the book was just very heart-wrenching as well. They're pretty much verbatim with each other. There's a few differences in the movie that they did in the book. But basically, if you haven't heard of this book, this is about Stella, who has cystic fibrosis. And she's been in and out of the hospital her entire life. This disease is very rough, and there's not really a cure for it. One of the biggest things that can happen is you can get a lung transplant, and that can at least extend your life 5 years. And she meets some other cystic fibrosis people. One's name is Poe and one's name is Will. Poe is like her best friend in the hospital. They, grew up together. They had, treatments together and stuff. Now, the one thing about cystic fibrosis is you are not allowed to be within 6 feet of that person who has the cystic fibrosis. It's something about the bacteria with the disease, and if it cross-contaminates, it can hurt you really, really bad. When she meets Will, it's definitely a friends to enemies. It's definitely an enemies to lovers relationship with these two. And it is the hardest relationship I think I've ever had to read. Because there was a lot of times where they wanted to, after the whole grumble mumble of kind of, see, it's funny because Stella is a little bit of a control freak, and she was getting frustrated because Will was not doing his treatments, and that's because Will was being stubborn and felt like there was no use. and she would just get mad at him. And Will was such a carefree person, Stella was such a by the book person, and they strike a deal. And it's so precious, but again, it was so hard because they would, once they got into that love connection, they really were struggling to stay away from each other. So Stella strikes up this deal. She brings out a pool cue and she says, all right, 5 feet apart. So basically, with the pool cue, they held hands with the pool cue and had their relationship. And the ending is very hard to read, but it was such a great ending. Now, the ending is definitely different from the book to the movie. So if you want to just watch the movie, just take a chance and read the book too. It's not even that long. I think it's like 276 pages. So as you can tell, it's fairly short. So yeah, that was 5 Feet Apart. Love this book. 5 stars. Recommend all around. Let's talk about the next thing I read, and that is, I believe I read this next. That is The Savior's Book Cafe Story in Another World, Volume 1. This story was so cute. I cannot wait to continue it. So this one is about Tsukina, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, and Il, I think is his name, and she gets approached by this godlike being saying that she needs to go to another world because it needs help, and she basically laid down what she would want in order to go to this world, and this god being totally grants everything. So she gets a book cafe in this magical like world, and it's just everything she's ever dreamed of. And Il comes along and notices this cafe and finds it very refreshing, finds it very peaceful, and he winds up stopping by, and he winds up stopping by there like almost every day, getting food, reading a book. And meanwhile, there is another thing going on in this world where there's a prince that has fallen head over heels for this savior. I'm not quite sure what this savior is meant to save, but because of course it's only volume 1. Duh, Christy. So it seems like this prince is love struck because this savior is such a brat. Like, she wants what she wants when she wants it, and if she doesn't get it, she throws a fit. And it just seems like she has some ulterior motives, honestly. And I'm gonna be really excited to continue this one, so I cannot wait to pick up volume 2. And then I read, finally, I got around to Lore Olympus Volume 1, and I do not know why I was sleeping on this one. I absolutely loved it. I flew through it in one setting, and y'all, the art alone in this, it was actually a webtoon. Like, trying to show something that might not, I don't think this will give away. Don't look too closely, but the art alone in this is just gorgeous. I love the pink and blue. It's so pretty. This is basically a Hades and Persephone retelling, and you get a very like rich and like almost like a rich and lonely Hades trying to find that girl, that one. And then Persephone is like a young goddess that's very like timid and to herself. And basically it's kind of about their relationship and finding each other. There is a time in here that is very unnerving. So I would put a trigger warning out for that. If you know, you know. But other than that, this was really solid. I can't wait to pick up volume 2. And the last, but certainly not least, that I read this month was A Girl and Her Guard Dog. This is a digital manga that I picked up from Kodansha. They were having a volume 1 for free sale of like a ton of series, and this is one of the ones that I picked up. A Girl and Her Guard Dog is basically about, what's her name? Izuku, and she is a 15-year-old granddaughter of a Yakuza boss. And she has a bodyguard named Kia, who's 26 years old. Now, Izuku has had a crush on this 26-year-old bodyguard, and she knows that this shouldn't be allowed because she is 15 years old, but, I mean, I'm sure that when we were like 15 or 16, we had crushes on older guys. I mean, I had crushes on my brother's friends. I mean, I know that's a really big age gap, but I'm just saying, like, her crush, I feel like, but she did realize that it was wrong to have a crush on him because he was older, but it's like, I can't blame her because, you know, when you're young like that and you have a guy like that around you, you can possibly have a crush, you know, it's like a little schoolgirl crush. But anyway, she goes to school one day and the bodyguard is there posing as a 16-year-old. And he's basically come to tell her that he's come to protect her. The interesting thing is, I am pretty sure that Kyo has a crush back on Izuku, but again, they both know it's wrong because of the age gap. And pretty much, and I say that because it seems like every guy that Izuku gets around, Izuku, I am trying my hardest to learn these Japanese names, but sometimes it is just very difficult, so please bear with me. Basically, any guy that comes up to her, like, Kyo jumps in and is like, you know, so, I don't know. I like that one. I think I might pick up more, maybe if it's on sale or something, but I just thought I would give that one a try since it was free for volume 1. Okay, now to the final question. Did I finish the readathon? Unfortunately not. Everything I read except for the one audiobook was for the readathon, so I was able to do 5 prompts out of the 10 that we had. It sucks because I did want to finish it. I tried so hard, but I think I burned myself out too quickly, because I don't read as fast as others. And I think that's okay, because I think you should enjoy what you read rather how fast you know, whether you, I think you should enjoy what you read rather than being upset because you're not keeping up with others. So, that is what happened, and I'm okay with that because at least I did get 5 books out of, you know, I read 5 things out of the 10 prompts that they had. So, and I was pretty proud of myself for picking up these 2 books they had been sitting on my shelf for a long time. So that made me super happy. Even this one, which is fairly still new, had been sitting on my shelf for a while. So I was proud of myself. So that's what I read in August, and that's how everything went down. Let me know if you had a favorite read that you read in August, and if you don't feel like telling me that, you can either leave me a comment about something you're excited about that you're going to read, or leave me a pink or blue emoji for Lore Olympus. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and just remember to stay strong and read on. Bye now.